Hello, and welcome to the Being Human podcast, where we explore what it means to truly be human, physically, mentally, and spiritually. We're going to be releasing an episode every single week throughout 2024, so hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss any of them. On this episode of the podcast, I sat down with Hike with Mike, as he is well known, who is the founder of the Hike with Mike Foundation. The Hike with Mike Foundation is a charity that helps support people's mental health and get them the support they need from mental health professionals. Mike is someone that I first met up the side of a mountain called Cribgoch when we were both embarking on the Welsh 3000s challenge. We spoke about that challenge, what that day or 2 days for Mike and his team were like. We talked about hiking in general, why Mike chose hiking as the medium and focal point for the charity. Mike gave some great advice as to how you can check up on your friends, how you can try and get people to open up who maybe aren't the most forthcoming in talking about their feelings, about their emotions. This really was just a helpful, fulfilling conversation, talking about some issues that unfortunately are very prominent in the world today, and what we can all do together to help address those issues, to help those around us, and ultimately help ourselves as well. I really hope that you find something valuable in this conversation today, something that you can take away and apply to your life, apply to the relationships in your life to try and help those people that you think may need it. If you want to take a look at the work that Mike does, then the Foundation's Instagram page is the Hike with Mike Foundation. I hope you find something valuable. I hope you enjoy the conversation. If you do, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share the video as well. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting Being Human. So, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
What is Hike with Mike, and how did it come about? Why did you found the charity?
Yeah, sure. So kind of going back right to the very start, I'd lost two of my close friends to suicide, and they'd been waiting weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks for help, or months in fact. Before that, my brother, who was kind of my best friend, he'd been in the military, he'd left the army, he really struggled to adapt back to everyday life, couldn't find work, his relationship broke down, and he turned to alcohol, substance abuse, which ended up costing him his life. And again, he desperately needed help, but just wasn't able to get it. So I always kind of knew I wanted to do something, I just wasn't quite sure what. And then during lockdown, I was really struggling myself. I was kind of in a very small apartment in the city centre, no garden. I'm a real kind of people person. I get my energy from being around like-minded people. So during lockdown, I was really struggling myself. I get my energy from being around people. I was stuck in a tiny apartment with no garden. I couldn't go out. I couldn't, do a lot. Just, it sounds like a victim mentality. It wasn't just me. I know thousands and millions of people, probably yourself, are exactly the same.
Lots of people are in the same boat.
And I was really kind of just a bit of a breaking point in my life. And then Boris announced that we were allowed to go for a walk a day. So I thought, right, okay, Boris, I'm going to take you up on this, mate. So I walked and turned into a bit of a walking Forrest Gump, normally around just Nottingham city centre and the areas. But I starting to feel a bit better in my mind, just being outside after kind of weeks and months kind of cooped up. I kind of started thinking, you know what, if this is making me feel a bit better, then surely it can maybe make some of my friends feel a bit better. So slowly some of my friends started kind of coming along, and then the walks became hikes, and then the hikes became, some of the challenges. I kind of said to my friends, maybe we can make something out of this. So many people, as lockdown's being lifted, have been struggling. Why don't we post something on Instagram or the internet and see who wants to come out? So we posted it, and I turned up, and it was just me and my mate Gary.
Really? So zero turnout for the first
Zero turnout, apart from Gary, who I can always rely on. So it was nearly called the Mike and Gary Foundation. But we kind of persevered with it, and slowly, I think the next one, 6 people came along, and we kind of decided to, push it a bit more, and slowly speaking, it's kind of built up and up and up. And everyone who's kind of coming on it was like, this is great, I feel so much better for being outside. It's great to meet kind of like-minded people. And then we kind of thought, well, let's formalize it. Let's actually, make something of it. So we kind of branded it as the Hike with Mike Foundation. We do monthly hikes just to kind of get people out and about, Could be people new to the area. Could be someone who's just out of a relationship, who's looking to meet new people. It could be someone who's been struggling with mental health, or it could just be someone who likes hiking. Exactly. So we do those once a month, completely free of charge. Built up a really, really kind of great community of people now. We kind of regularly get 80, 90 people on each one. And then I kind of thought, well, this is great. We're getting people out and about. We are generally helping people this way. But how can we actually directly help people who are kind of past that stage, who are really, really battling to hold on to their life and really kind of questioning whether they want to be here anymore? And I kind of went back to the challenge of my friends and my brother who desperately needed help, but that help just wasn't accessible or available quickly. So then I kind of decided, well, let's see if we can monetize it. And when I say monetize it, we never want to charge people to come on our monthly hikes. That's kind of one of my kind of golden mantras. But when we do bigger challenges like the Welsh 3000s, where we met you, and the Three Peaks and so on and so forth, if we could somehow kind of get people to collect sponsorship for doing that, then we could maybe really do something great with those funds. So essentially what happens is people get sponsored for doing our events. Money goes into a centralised pot. We don't take a penny out of it. So unlike other charities, 100p in every pound goes towards helping people. Some charities, that's kind of 50, 60p. Any overheads kind of we absorb, I typically pay for myself. And then anybody who needs help can come to us and we'll fund 6 therapy sessions within 24 hours. At the moment, we're paying for about 150 people. And, I can safely say that probably a third, 2/3 of them might not have been here today, having not had that help straight away.
That's amazing. The second question I had written down was why hiking, but you've kind of alluded to that in that first response, but to kind of explicitly state it, I guess you stumbled upon it naturally rather than thinking, I want to help improve my mental health and other people's. How can we do this? Okay, let's do hiking for X, Y, Z. But what was it that you found in hiking that you think particularly resonated with you and clearly now has resonated with so many other people as well?
Yeah. So I've always been an outdoorsy kind of person. I remember when I was a kid, I was about the only kid in the class not to have a Mega Drive at the time.
So that shows how young I am. What's a Mega Drive?
So a Mega Drive, think of like an Xbox minus about 80 years.
Oh, okay.
I'm giving away my age now. So a Mega Drive.
I think we've just shown how much, how true I am to my
baby. so a Mega Drive was like a console where if you're an 80s kid, every kid in the class had a Mega Drive.
Yeah. So for me, it was a GameCube.
Yes.
I guess that was the 90s version.
Yeah. So it's a bit before that. It's like a Super Nintendo rival. And I was very much a case of mum was very much a case of right, go and play in the garden or go and build a den or something like that. And I used to love it all, to be honest. I still wanted a Mega Drive, but I used to love it all. And we sometimes used to go on kind of caravan holidays and camping holidays, and I always used to really kind of like the outdoors then. But I never really kind of did much with it. And occasionally, one of my mates in the summer would be like, fancy doing something different, and we'd go for a hike, but then not do it again for 6-8 months or whatever till next summer. So I've always kind of liked it, but never really kind of built it into that. And then bizarrely, in my previous job, there was a bit of kind of a well-being drive, and we kind of saw that a day called Blue Monday was coming up, which is, I think it's the third Monday of January, which is widely believed to be the most depressing day of the year because it's cold, it's dark, it's the day where most New Year's resolutions come to an end. And I kind of said to my team at work, I said, look, guys, let's do something fun this day. Let's go out for a team walk or something like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, we could call it Hike with Mike. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then we said, actually, let's invite some other people from other departments as well. And then all of a sudden, kind of loads of people started saying, yeah, we'd love to do that. The company I was working for, Experian, were absolutely fantastic and massively backed it. And after that day, we went out to the Roaches and the Peak District. And after that day, that's what really, really kind of gave me the bug for it. It wasn't a charity. It was just a one-off kind of get outside event on that day. But I felt on such a high afterwards that I thought, you know what, maybe we can do something here.
Yeah. And then you kind of naturally, was that at the same time as when you started walking in lockdown and gathering people?
No, so this was before. This was kind of just a one-off event.
And then you naturally kind of came back to it and realigned with it during lockdown.
Yeah. I mean, I've always kind of been someone who really likes adrenaline sports. So I love my football. I love, kind of high energy activities. I'm so restless I have to stay at home sometimes. And, I think with hiking, it's not necessarily elitist. So I'm sure you kind of know
it's accessible to everyone.
That's probably a better word of saying it. So if I was to have never boxed before and then got into a ring with you, or UFC'd before and got into a ring with you, I probably wouldn't be walking for a couple of years. With hiking, obviously, it's open to everybody. You can do long hikes, you can do short hikes, you can do steep hikes, you can do relatively easy hikes. And I think what's good is that the progress is really tangible as well. So we've got people who've kind of come on our first hikes and really struggled after 2 or 3K. We're now seeing them absolutely, bossing 20K and signing up for the Free Peaks Challenge. And it's kind of really great that anybody who is, owning a pair of hiking boots or good trainers can do it and work towards something and have that sense of satisfaction afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think just to kind of give my 2 cents, because obviously I'm in the same boat as you. I think just getting out and going for a walk, like you said, that can take many forms, from just walking around the block to walking up Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
But I think there's definitely something about it. And in my mind, what I think is so beneficial are kind of 2 things. The first one being that you get outside, and I am such a big believer in the fact that we are too detached from our natural environment, which is the outdoors. And I think the term outdoors is people don't realise what a crazy concept that is.
Yeah.
Like 1,000 years ago, outdoors probably wasn't even a term, because you were always outdoors. There were no doors. There were no doors. You were there in your, not in your tent.
Yeah.
You shelter that you'd made somewhere, not 1,000 years ago, we're talking, a few thousand. You get my point.
Absolutely.
That we're meant to be outside.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of it, just getting natural sunlight. Obviously, there's, these are all biologically beneficial things, sunlight, fresh air. But they have what I would call a spiritual effect as well. I think 100%. It's all connected. So there's that, just getting outside, that's healthy for you alone. Then the other part is the actual hike itself. And like you said, you begin to scale, the fitter you get, the more you scale it.
Yeah.
And you get to the point where hiking is very demanding.
Yeah.
Especially when you add, the kind of adrenaline elements, like going up somewhere like Crib Goch or somewhere, you're going up somewhere where you're literally faced with a potential life-threatening scenario, and your heart's pounding at your chest, not just from that, but from the fact that you've just, ascended 2,000 feet up into the air in the space of 45 minutes. So the other part of it is that doing hard things. I do think that's an important part. The dopamine, to bring it back to biology, the dopamine circuitry, to have to expend effort to then get some kind of reward, even if that reward is completely internal. So for me, that's what I think. That's why I think hiking is such a brilliant tool for health all around, physical, mental, and spiritual. Get outside, and as well, you begin to push yourself more and more, and through that, you not only get physically fitter, but you get a clarity of mind and an emotional, spiritual lift.
Totally agree.
And on that note, obviously I've just kind of given a couple of points there, but what do you think is behind, I say this mental health epidemic?
Yeah.
I think pretty much everyone's in agreement that there is a mental health epidemic.
Yeah.
Kind of give me your thoughts on that first.
Yeah.
As to what you see the state of mental health being in this country and the world as a whole, and then what you think is behind that. Yeah.
So I think there's quite a few factors. I think one big thing, and I have to talk about this, and when I kind of go to give talks and everything, it comes back to formative years in education. A lot of it does. So 99% of people learn Shakespeare at school. 99% of people, Shakespeare is great, it's valuable. Some people love it, some people don't. Whatever your views on it, people generally have to learn that as part of their English at school. What's really interesting as well is around 15 to 20% of people actually learn Latin at school, a dead language.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's quite a high percentage.
Very high, very high. A dead language, essentially. They say it's kind of formative for other languages like Spanish, French, what have you. But ultimately, is it useful in your day-to-day life? For some people, potentially a tiny little bit. For the vast majority of people, not. But only 2% of people actually learn about managing your mental well-being. So how to deal with stress, how to deal with anxiety, how to manage your emotions, how to identify when you're struggling, how to identify when someone else is struggling. So throughout kind of those formative years, you're kind of in a bit of a bubble, in an environment where you kind of learn what's ingrained into you, and everything else is almost irrelevant. You kind of go back to your maths lessons. You learn how to work out the volume of a circle, but you don't learn how to actually work out your tax bill. Little things like that. So practical life skills. So I think often, one of the kind of biggest things is that when you leave that bubble of education, and this is why so many people struggle throughout university, or once they finish university, your first 21, 22 years of your life are often planned out for you. And when you kind of get to the shit, and now what? What do I do? I've always woken up and known I've had a lecture at 9 o'clock, or I've got this, and now I've got to pay my own bill, I've got to pay my own rent, I've got to find my own work, I've got to kind of plan my own life. But because you haven't necessarily learned those skills leading up to that, I believe a lot of people are kind of set up for failure. I think the other thing, and this is kind of why I believe mental health has exploded a lot in recent years, is social media, if I'm entirely honest. Now, probably, sounds a bit kind of hypocritical saying this, because so many of us rely on social media.
Well, that's the thing. It can work both ways, can't it?
Absolutely, it can. Now, what we've kind of grown up and seen, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years, is the whole kind of influencer model. You've had this kind of whole influencer mentality, whole influencer culture, where a lot of people grow up and see somebody with a heavily filtered, airbrushed picture, be that a body that is completely unachievable, or a look or a tone, or whatever it might be. And people kind of look at that individual and think, crap, that's what I want. That's what I want to be. So they go on a diet, they train. 6 months later, they still don't look like that individual. They're still not happy. And the reason they're not necessarily happy is because they're doing it for the wrong reasons. They're doing it to copy someone else, to look like someone else. But this influencer gets bigger and bigger. They get other brand deals. They get 500,000 likes on all their pictures and what have you. And you kind of always want that bit more. You're always kind of almost aiming to be somebody else rather than being true to yourself. And I think social media has so many good elements. It's enabled many connections. It's enabled growth. It's enabled awareness. But I think there's a lot of pitfalls to it as well. Personally, I've deleted all my own kind of personal accounts, because I was just spending hours and hours scrolling stuff and kind of comparing myself against others. I think you sometimes beat yourself up for not being where you want to be. Whereas what you've got to remember is that on social media, it's generally a highlight reel of someone's life. It's the best 2 minutes of their day. It's the best photo they've taken that week. It doesn't necessarily show the pain they've been facing. It doesn't necessarily mean that because someone's smiling in a photo, that actually they're happy. But you might be feeling unhappy, see everybody smiling in their photos and think, crap, everyone else is happy, why aren't I? And it really kind of can eat at you a little bit. It was a really fascinating picture. I say fascinating, it's probably the wrong word, but Chester Bennington, who was the leader of Linkin Park, it was a really kind of touching picture. It's of him, his 3 kids and his wife, smiling, all looking so happy. 24 hours later, he'd taken his own life. Now, looking at that picture, the perception of Chester Bennington would have been, oh, he's happy, he's with his family, he's with his wife, he looks all set. But what that picture doesn't show is actually the pain that he was perhaps masking with that smile. And I think there's so many examples of that on social media that comparison element can be super dangerous. And then the third part why I think there's a mental health pandemic is because there's still so many stigmas attached to it. So if you're a male aged under 45, statistically speaking, the biggest threat to your own life is yourself. Now I find that terrifying. So when I get up in the mirror and brush my teeth and look in the mirror, and I'm thinking, hey, the biggest threat to me is me. Men are 10 times more likely to take their own life, but also 15 times less likely to get help than women. And I think, there's still a kind of toxic mentality sometimes where men asking for help, acknowledging they need help, is still sometimes seen as a bit of a weakness. And one thing I really want to get out of this and through the hikes and through spreading the awareness is to hopefully break that down, but it's okay to talk. With my friends, we always used to talk about the football, we used to talk about going out, girls, getting drunk, whatever it might be, but we never really spoke about, how you feeling, mate? You've been a bit quiet lately. Yeah. Let's go for a walk and a pint. And I think one thing I probably learned from my friend's suicides is that I can't change it. You know, it's taken a long time to accept it, but I'd like to think I can hopefully make those changes in my existing friendship group and be there for them and beyond as well.
I found that really, I was just the same word as you, fascinating. What you said about, is it Chester? Sorry,
Chester Bennington.
Chester. There's a similarity there with Matthew Perry.
Yes.
Who just took his own life recently. Obviously, the circumstances are kind of hazy, but I think at this point it's been concluded that he ended up overdosing.
Yeah.
On some kind of recreational drug. But the point I was going to make was I heard that Jennifer Aniston, obviously one of his co-stars on Friends and a close friend of his, said she spoke with him that morning.
Wow.
And he seemed like he was doing really well.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people were thinking, how come, people didn't see the signs? Because apparently there was that whole thing about, did you hear he called himself the Mat Man whenever he was in danger? And
oh, really?
Yeah. So he wrote about it in his book.
Yeah.
He'd call himself the Mat Man, kind of like a play on Batman, whenever he was in trouble.
Yeah.
And he posted something on his Instagram, apparently, of like the bat signal, or a kind of like a parody of it, going out into the sky, basically as a call for help.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, why weren't his friends, didn't his friends see that he needed help? Why didn't they help him? But then hearing it from, someone close to him like Jennifer Aniston, she said, well, he seemed fine. Even if he was calling out for help, he seemed fine on that day. And then all of a sudden, just a few hours later, like I said, we don't know the exact circumstances. Maybe it was completely accidental, who knows? But the point being is, you really don't know, do you, when the end could be near?
No.
I mean, for someone who's been touched by it more than once, do you have any advice for people on how they can potentially spot those signs? Or is it really that elusive?
There's a real, I guess, misconception that someone who's struggling with mental health sits there crying the whole time, looks miserable. And often it couldn't be further from the truth. And, is there a magic way of kind of spotting that someone's really struggling? Sometimes there is, sometimes there's not. So, some of the typical signs are someone becomes a bit more withdrawn. So, someone who might always be, quick to text back or, first to reply and meet you at the pub kind of thing, maybe slowly starts kind of sliding back away from that. Sometimes it could be more subtle things like, their appearance starts kind of changing. They perhaps look a bit more tired and jaded over, perhaps not kind of fully with it. But that could also mean a million one other things. It could mean that they've been, kind of struggling. It could be that, potentially they, like I say, maybe, sorry, I've lost my train of thought there. So it could potentially be that they're, not quite as up for kind of activities as we would be, a bit more withdrawn, perhaps a bit more irritable than normal, or sometimes
it's kind of any vacant deviation from their usual self.
Yeah, but it could be that, or it could just be they've got something on their mind, or they've just had a crap night's sleep, or they've got a hangover. And that's kind of where I think the conversation part is so key. That we often say, "Hello, mate, how you doing?" But how are you actually doing? You sure?
There's two different ways of saying that, isn't there?
Yeah.
You're right, and are you right?
Absolutely.
There's a difference to that.
Yeah, and sometimes kind of opening up yourself to a friend can often then promote them to open up to you. So, I've got a friend who I know has kind of struggled in the past, but hides it very, very well. So I kind of went by the tact of actually saying, "Oh, mate, I've been struggling a bit myself lately. I know you've kind of battled in the past. Can I talk to you about it?"
That's a really good tactic, that is.
And it kind of then promotes that two-way conversation. And I just kind of want my mates to know that, we can have a laugh and a joke. We can go to the pub, we can go to the football, we can do whatever, but you can talk to me. And I will never judge you, and I know that you will never judge me. And I probably feel that, my closest friendship group, we've kind of got a real tighter level of friendship now, because we're not just talking about football, we're not just talking about going out, we're not just talking about X, Y, and Z, we're talking about actually how we feel as well. It kind of feels quite liberating doing that, actually.
No, absolutely. I think that's really important. And I think communication is key. Like I said, I've got some friends that it's difficult to even approach a conversation like that. And as a result, your friendship does end up feeling a bit shallower, because you can have a great time, you might be able to laugh with them all day long. But if you can't kind of speak about what's bothering you and you don't really know what's under the surface with them, you know how work's going, you know how, you know what I mean, what they've done last weekend, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But maybe not how they feel about it.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between talking about things and then how you feel about those things. And like you said, I think you're missing something. Obviously, there's the important element of having those conversations to make sure someone is okay, and ultimately that they stay here on this planet and end up having a fulfilling and happy life.
Yeah.
The other part of it is, even say that you're good and you're kind of getting through life fine, you are missing out on something if you're not having that deeper connection. I think that's really important, that even if you're not in crisis, if you're in crisis, it's particularly important to have conversations like that. But even if you're not, have those conversations, because it's going to add so much more to your life, I think, than just kind of living on this plateau.
I mean, I'll be honest, I'd still got some of the messages I was kind of exchanging with one of my friends, Richard, who did take his own life. And I kind of read back through the messages sometimes and, do you fancy going, for some food? We're playing foot golf next week. Do you fancy coming? Or, oh yeah, just kick your ass on FIFA or whatever it might be. Never once did we actually ask each other, how are you, mate? How are you? I can't change it, but we can change it going forward.
I think that's important. Like you say, you can't change the past, but you can let the past change how you're acting now in the present, and that's perfectly example with what you're doing now. Like you said, you alluded to it, and I'll say it concretely. There's no doubt that what you're doing with Hike with Mike is changing people's lives and has saved people's lives, whether that is through going out on the hikes themselves or from the funds that have been raised from doing the challenges, what those funds have gone towards. We're definitely doing that. So we can't change the past, but we can let lessons learned from the past change what we do in the present to ensure that things like that happen as little as possible.
Cheers, mate.
And you said as well, talking about how it's okay to talk.
Yeah.
There's obviously the phrase, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
I'll kind of ask you two questions.
Yeah.
What do you think about that phrase? Because that's kind of almost become like not a political debate, but it's kind of like a political debate where there's kind of two sides to it.
Yeah.
People who say, oh, it's absolutely okay to be not okay. And then you've got people that say, well, no, how is it okay not to be okay? That's promoting like a victim mentality. That's promoting people to kind of wallow in their own misery.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? And then kind of off of the back of that, there's obviously influencers in the world today, like a David Goggins, like an Andrew Tate, who one way or another are kind of icons of masculinity. And so this is more geared towards men's mental health and kind of promoters of mental health.
Yeah.
But they have a very different message. They all have their own individual messages, but as a group, people like David Goggins, Andrew Tate, those kind of people have a very different way of approaching mental health to the other side of the fence. And their side is quite obviously, it's not okay to be not okay. So, what do you think of that phrase? And what do you think of the people that are kind of in the camp of, it's not okay not to be okay?
Yeah. So I think the phrase even is a phrase that's probably a bit overused. So I think kind of the initial context of that phrase was meant to be, if you're feeling not okay, then don't beat yourself up as okay. That's essentially kind of is it okay to stay not okay is kind of the other debate. And I think when you kind of look at it in that element, it's a case of, do you want to stay not okay for forever? Is it a temporary thing, or what can we do to get you out of it? So I kind of think it's an introductory line to say to people, if you're not feeling yourself, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's normal to not feel okay. Do I think it's good for anyone to stay not okay for a period of time? No. Do I think that those people kind of need help, support, sometimes self-reflection? 100%. I think the way that people like Andrew Tate go about it is completely wrong, because it kind of assumes that his way of thinking about it works for 100% of people, whereas we know that human beings are very complex individuals, and whilst it might work for a percentile of those, everybody's got different things that might make them okay. Do I think, each person needs to take accountability a little bit to, get themselves out of a rut sometimes? 100%. I know, my Walkshire on lockdown as an example. I probably stumbled upon them, excuse the pun. But that did kind of lead to me starting to feel okay. People who take accountability to join our hikes, that's them kind of recognizing actually they want to do something about it and kind of come along. But there are, huge amount of people who potentially, struggle with confidence, anxiety, who don't necessarily know how to take that first step to become okay. And I think that's where kind of the awareness piece is so important. These are kind of the things that can help your mental health. I could say, hiking helps my mental health. There could be many other people out there whose mental health, it might not help. And it's kind of about finding that inner peace in your life and things that make you feel secure, happy, and release those endorphins. Is that right? Endorphins, that's the one. God, I should know that one. Because, to me, that might be running around a football pitch, chasing a ball, going out for nice food, seeing my friends and family, or going on a hike. For someone else, that might be drawing, it might be painting, it might be something else. So I think finding what makes you content, happy, and can draw you out of that negative mind space is key. Do you need to take some accountability for that? Yes. But there's a lot of support to help you, guide you on that journey to help you take that first step. There's a phrase, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And there's a lot that we can do to help and support people. But ultimately, an individual also needs to want that help.
I think you kind of created like a new phrase, which I really like there, which is it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay not okay. Yeah. I think that's a perfect way of putting it, because that highlights the truth of the fact that we're not always going to feel all right. Yeah. Like there's no, you can try and fake it, but that's all you're going to do. Yeah. Fake it. We're not always going to feel like ourselves. We're going to have days where we feel crap, where we feel rubbish, where we don't feel on point. But the point is, like you said, it's acknowledging, it's all right that I don't feel 100 today, but now I need to do something about it. It's not all right to just kind of sit here and wallow in it, and that would be the staying not okay part. Yeah. So I think that's a really great way to put it. And I think another important point of truth that you stated there was the fact that not everyone is going to be at a point where they can just respond to the become accountable message, become accountable, do this, get out there, do exactly what you know you need to do. Because some people, their confidence and self-esteem is at such a rock bottom that, throw them into water and see if they sink or swim. Sure, that is a tactic. Yeah. And you know what? For most people, they will swim. But some people won't. Some people, their confidence is rock bottom. They just try and throw themselves into a scenario for the sake of trying to build confidence, build themselves back up, and it could completely crush them. Yeah. Telling someone, just become more confident, is kind of like telling somebody it's in a state of panic, just calm down. It's not necessarily going to help. Absolutely may very rarely actually help. So I think that's really, really important. To kind of go into the hiking side of it a bit more. Yeah. Obviously we exchanged a few messages over social media, but then you and I actually met halfway up Snowdon, technically, halfway up Crib Goch at the start of the Welsh 3000s challenge. Yeah. I'm kind of pre-assuming the answer. It might not be this, but I was going to ask you, what's kind of the most memorable hiking experience, challenge experience that you've done as Hike with Mike? Is it the 3000s or?
I think it would have to be the 3000s, to be perfectly honest. I'll be perfectly honest. We underestimated it. Really? On a huge scale. On a huge scale. I think you can make plans. You can look at a route on a map and think, well, it's only kind of this distance. So if we kind of do this and, this in that time, then it'll be fine. I mean, you saw firsthand just what that weather was like. It was to just set the scene for people listening, it was the middle of, I think I spoke about this with Perry before on the podcast, but just to recap, it was the middle of June, almost the longest day of the year, and it didn't matter because it was, the clouds were in, you could not see anything, the rain was horizontal. I think the winds were like 60 miles per hour or something. Yeah. Is that right? I didn't know the exact figures, but I heard rumours afterwards. and I believe it because it was hard to just kind of walk straight. Yeah. But yeah, take it away. And so, as a memorable experience, that is without a doubt the most memorable one. At times, I absolutely hated it. I'll be perfectly honest. I remember, my waterproofs were no longer waterproof. My waterproof boots were like boats. They were just soaking in water. I remember literally taking my boot off and emptying it. And there was times when I was just like, Mike, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was looking at the group and morale was pretty low, to say the best. And I'm thinking, oh Christ, my name's on this. But you know what?
If the ship goes down, I'm at the helm.
I remember, at the end of kind of the second day, well, about midway through, day 2, you guys.
I suppose we should actually highlight what exactly it is. So the Welsh 3000 is the 15 highest mountains in Wales. They're all over 3,000 feet, which is why it's called the Welsh 3000s. And you can do it as a 24-hour challenge, which is what me and Perry did, or you can just, do it over the course of 2 days, which is what you and your group did. A lot of people do, because it is a long course. Like you said, you've got the 15 highest mountains in Wales. I think it's over 4,000 meters of elevation in total that you're climbing up, all in all, and that doesn't count going back down as well. Obviously, there's the descents, which are tough too. And in terms of the actual distance, I think it's over 60 kilometers. Yeah. So it's a mammoth task for anyone that's not aware of it. It's I kind of don't like this name, but they call it the toughest day hike in the UK. Yeah. I don't think day hike quite covers it. It's a bit more than a day hike. But yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No. So, day 2, just to be entirely transparent here, we planned to wild camp at the end of day 1. Ended up checking into a cheeky hotel and having a bath. And that bath probably saved my life, to be perfectly honest. Day 2, it started off just as bad as day 1, but then probably around 11.
Where did you get to on day? Was it in the Owin Valley that you left off at day 1? Yeah,
so we finished. I think we did the first 5 or 6 on day 1, and then the plan was to finish in Owin Valley. I think we were going to do Trifan that day, but that got bumped to the next day, which Josh and a few of the other guys did. But the weather just completely changed within probably 20 minutes, and we went from literally saturated, drenched, to it being a glorious sunny day. And just kind of that feeling when you saw that first chink of blue in the clouds, and then 10 minutes later, beating glorious down sunshine. I actually ended up with a really bad sunburn at the end of it. Yeah. People thought I was a fraud, saying the weather's been terrible, and I was coming back looking like a refresher bar.
Oh, you've been to Mallorca.
Yeah. But I think the whole experience of that was a lot of strangers. Some people knew each other, some people didn't. By the end of it, it felt kind of like we were a band of brothers. We would not have been able to have got as far as we did without morale support and the encouragement of those. Not everybody finished it. Some people dropped out after day 1, but they stayed behind to support, to have a bit of a barbecue at the end, to welcome everyone back with beers. There was one point where we were about half an hour away from the end, and some guy took over directions and went on a 4-hour detour.
How did that? Where was that?
Oh God, it was literally after the 15th one. We just needed
to go. You finished Folfra.
Yeah.
And it was on the way down.
Yeah.
That is you're out in the sticks there. Obviously Snowdonia is out in the sticks anyway. Yeah. But on that last portion on the Carnardow, that really is. That's probably the most remote place I've been to in the UK. There's nothing there apart from sheep. Literally
nothing. So we ended up going across some old quarry, and then we came out by some waterfall, which is quite nice. We actually ended up wild swimming, which kind of calmed me down a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit. But I think, looking back on it as a memorable experience, it was a huge challenge. We're not athletes. We're people with kind of full-time jobs who like going out of the weekends occasionally to go on a hike. And I think, we did underestimate it, or I underestimated it. But would I change it? Absolutely not. We've got the experience. We've got those laughs of people's lips turning blue on the top of a mountain. We've got pictures of people lying there spread out. We've got the memories of Glenn sliding on his arse down half a mountain because he lost his footing. We've got that morale. We've got those laughs, and I wouldn't change it for the world. We raised just over 13 grand doing that.
Wow. And that's I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, and that's helped so many people. So for a weekend, it was an experience. It was a great experience. It was a bloody tough experience. Would I want to try it in 10 hours like you did? Absolutely no chance whatsoever. But it's not what we're about. And we did it. We raised some great money, and it allows a springboard for us to plan our next adventures as well.
Yeah, and you say you wouldn't want to try it in 10 hours. I wouldn't want to do it over 2 days. But the thought of that was such a long and, I say, toughest day of my life. Obviously, there's different kinds of tough. But in terms of going out and actively, voluntarily putting yourself through something, that probably was the toughest day of my life in that regard. The thought of having to get up and do that again the next day is just, so you know what I mean? They're both kind of as impressive in their own rights. And like you said, the fact that you underestimated it kind of, in a way, has its own level of impressiveness to it, because to be able to see the whole thing through, having not been prepared, we put a lot of preparation into it, and it was still incredibly tough. So yeah, kudos to you and everyone in your group that did it, whether they finished the full course or not, because it is the toughest day hike in the UK. You said you obviously raised lots of funds from that, and that's given you a springboard to move into what you've got planned in the future. What have you got planned in the future in terms of the hikes and challenges you've got coming up this year?
Yep.
And as well, what any funds that are raised from those are going to be put towards?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I'll mention first before I kind of go into the hikes is that we've actually kind of now moved into a space where it's incredible, because we've got people who are actually kind of doing events for us.
Oh, wow.
So we've got kind of different hiking groups who are kind of doing hikes and then kind of donating to us. And I'm not sure if you know Michael Ford, a big shout out to him. So he's actually going on an incredible challenge where he's running the length of the country from John O'Groats. But he's doing it via the Three Peaks.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so that's another wrinkle.
Absolutely.
That's a big detour.
Yes. So Michael's kindly doing that, and he's actually splitting the funds between us and Lymphoma Action Charity, two charities close to his heart. And kind of seeing the commitment that people are willing to, put themselves through and, do to kind of help other people is completely admirable. We've had so many people kind of do different events like that, but it's really quite heartwarming. But on the hiking front, so we're still doing our monthly hikes. We've got our first one coming up in 2 weeks, just doing Force Cave. So about a 15, 20k circular. Actually doing Snowdon a week after that. We've partnered up with Forsyth Barnes, a recruitment firm based in Nottingham. And
which route will you be doing?
Sorry?
Which route?
Absolutely not Crib Guard. Not sure yet, probably Watkins Path.
Yeah.
So kind of not the easiest, but not the hardest.
Yeah, and it's got a nice bit of scrambling at the end, and it's I hear it's very picturesque. I haven't actually done it myself. But yeah.
So looking to do that one. But our next kind of big challenge, if you like, is the Yorkshire Three Peaks. So we're doing that on the 20th of April. We're actually doing it slightly different this time. So what we found on the Welsh 3000s is that you've got 26 people at the time, and on a 15, 20k Peak District hike, you kind of all clustered in that same level of fitness. When it comes to 60, 70k, 15 mountains, those deltas in fitness become quite noticeable. What we don't want to do is kind of have the fast people having to wait for the slower people, and we don't want the slower people feeling under pressure to be, catching up with everyone. So we're actually doing it in kind of 3 groups. So we're doing kind of group 1, whose time is basically to get around as fast as you can. And we're looking to see if we can do a bit of a prize for kind of whoever can do it the fastest. We've only got about 6 or 7 people in that group, what I call the crazy people. So that's a group you'd probably be in. You'd be in good company. You then kind of got group 2, where most of us have done it before, perhaps looking to do it in sub 9 hours. And then we've got group 3, who are perhaps the people who are newer to hiking, haven't done a challenge like that before. And the aim is just to get them around safely without any particular. Yeah. What we want to do is to kind of really demonstrate it's not a competition. Just getting around that course is a hell of an achievement. It's a beautiful course. Some people will love it, some people will hate it, but everybody will have that achievement at the end of it. And we don't want kind of a fragmented group to kind of have that impact. So that's the next kind of bigger one we're doing. And then over the summer, we're looking to do the Lake District 10 in 10. So I'm
not familiar with that.
Nor am I, to be perfectly honest. Just I think it's Josh and Rick, 2 of the guys.
Okay, so it's their not thought experiment, but it's there.
Well, I'm sure it was Emmy mentioned it, and they did some of it a few months back, and a few people have mentioned it's a really great one. So naively, Mike has kind of said, yeah, we'll do that. And then I'll probably read into the details of it and think, not again.
I like the sound of it, 10 in 10.
Yeah.
I assume it's 10 mountains in 10 hours.
I assume that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's assume. I don't think it's 10 beers in 10 minutes, but not the university 10 in 10. So yeah, I think it will be that. We haven't got a date for it yet, but we'll be looking to do that. And then, one of the things we're looking at as well is potentially a bit of an overseas challenge we'd love to do at some point. We've got, some great potential options, the Atlas Mountains or some of the ones in Italy or Turkey. So yeah, watch this space.
Yeah, no, certainly will do. And as a final point, anyone who's struggling, obviously we've also already talked a lot about it, and please do tell people how they can get in contact with you if they need to. But people who are struggling, what message do you have for them, to them, and where can they go and get help?
Yeah. So I think firstly, the message to anyone struggling is that being alive, being human can be so tough sometimes. It generally can be. And anybody who says they never struggle in their life is quite frankly lying. We all have our bad moments. And I'd always say to anyone who is struggling at a moment in time that talking to someone and asking for help is generally the bravest thing you can do. Not doing anything about it is rarely a solution. Sometimes, superficial things can pass. But if you're truly kind of in a place where you're questioning your existence or questioning whether you want to harm yourself or questioning your future, then talking to somebody is so important. Speaking from experience here, you'll be amazed at how many people want to help, how many people want to listen. And from a charity perspective, we can absolutely help that as well. So as a friend, I'm more than happy to listen. If we do feel that, you potentially need some more deeper help with a professional therapist or a counsellor, we can absolutely help you with that. We typically fund 6 sessions straight away, and we can, extend them if needs be. So reach out to us on Instagram, which is at the Hype for Mike Foundation, or our website, www.thehypefrommikefoundation.com. We typically look to get back to people within, 24 hours, have a conversation and get the ball rolling for help. But never suffer alone, because life is too precious to give up on.
I love that. Thank you, Mike.
My pleasure.
I love what you're doing. Like you said, and like I said, you're absolutely saving lives, and there's nothing more important than that ultimately end of the day. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything you have.
My pleasure, mate.
Yeah, I look forward to continue to watch everything you do.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully get you on one of our challenges, mate.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Always welcome. There's always a mountain men's space at our courses.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Maybe the 10 and 10.
Absolutely, mate. We'll sign you up for it.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, Aaron.